2 years after divorce, she took her daughter to school, unaware her ex-billionaire boss was watching them. The black Tesla had been following her Honda for 3 blocks. Simone Harper didn't notice. She was too busy watching her 9-year-old daughter try not to cry in the rearview mirror. But Julian Cross noticed everything. He'd waited 730 days to do this. And in exactly 4 minutes, he was going to walk back into her life and refuse to leave. Welcome to Emotional Voyage. I'm so glad you're here to share this journey with me. If this content resonates with you, please hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps me create even deeper, more meaningful videos for our community. Let's navigate these emotions together. Nia sat in the back seat of the used Honda, smoothing down her first day of 4th grade dress with the same careful precision she used for everything now. 9 years old and already carrying the weight of a broken home in the set of her small shoulders. You look beautiful, baby, Simone said, pulling into the drop-off line at Charleston Academy. Do you think the other kids will remember? Nia's voice was small. Simone's chest tightened. She knew what her daughter meant. Last year, before the divorce was finalized, before they'd moved from the house with the backyard into the 2-bedroom apartment near the port, Nia had been dropped off in a different car. By a different version of her mother who didn't have permanent worry lines etched between her eyebrows. Remember what, sweetheart? That Dad used to come to things. The car behind them honked gently. The line was moving. Hey. Simone twisted in her seat, meeting her daughter's dark brown eyes, the same shade as her own. You and me. We're doing just fine. Better than fine. Nia nodded, but didn't smile. She grabbed her backpack, the one they'd found on sale 3 weeks ago, and climbed out. Simone watched her walk toward the entrance, that careful walk, like she was trying not to take up too much space in the world. 2 years since Marcus. No, she wouldn't think his name today. 2 years since she'd discovered the affair. 2 years since she'd filed for divorce and lost nearly everything in the process because she'd been too young and too trusting to insist on a prenup. 2 years since she'd walked away from her job as executive assistant to Julian Cross. Simone's hands tightened on the steering wheel at the thought of her former boss. She'd resigned the same week she'd filed for divorce, unable to face the humiliation of anyone at Cross Industries knowing her marriage had imploded. Julian had been understanding when she'd given notice. Too understanding, actually, his blue eyes seeing more than she'd wanted to show. He'd written her a reference letter that had helped her land her current position at a smaller firm, making 1/3 of what she'd earned before. She pulled out of the drop-off line and headed toward the exit, checking her watch. If she didn't hit traffic, she'd make it to the office with 5 minutes to spare. What Simone didn't see was the black Tesla parked across the street, or the man inside it watching the school entrance with an intensity that would have surprised anyone who knew him as the cold, calculated CEO of Charleston's largest real estate development firm. Julian Cross had been sitting there for 20 minutes. He'd told himself he was scouting the neighborhood for a potential mixed-use development. The historic district near Charleston Academy had been on his radar for months. It was a perfectly reasonable explanation for why he was here on a Tuesday morning instead of in his downtown office. It was also a complete lie. He'd been tracking Simone Harper's life from a careful distance for 2 years. Not in a creepy way, he'd never crossed that line. But he knew she'd moved. Knew she was working at Henderson and Associates. Knew her daughter attended Charleston Academy because he'd made a substantial anonymous donation to their scholarship fund last year, and he'd happened to see Nia's name on the recipient list. Happened to see. Right. Julian watched Simone's Honda disappear around the corner and felt the familiar twist in his chest that had been his constant companion since she'd walked into his office that September morning 2 years ago and quit. He'd known something was wrong. Simone had been the best assistant he'd ever had, sharp, organized, always 3 steps ahead of him. But that last month, she'd been somewhere else entirely, her usual warmth replaced by a brittle professionalism that had set off every alarm bell in his head. Then she was gone. He'd heard about the divorce through the grapevine. Charleston's upper circles were small, and Marcus Harper had been stupid enough to flaunt his new relationship at the yacht club within weeks of the separation. Julian had wanted to drive to wherever the man worked and have a very pointed conversation about respect, but that would have revealed too much. It would have revealed that he'd been halfway in love with his married assistant for 3 years and had never said a word. His phone buzzed. His assistant, the 5th one in 2 years, none of them lasting more than a few months, was calling. Cross. Mr. Cross, your 9 o'clock is here early. The meeting about the Harbor Point project. Julian started the car. Tell them I'm 5 minutes out. He pulled away from the curb, glancing once more at the school entrance. 2 years was long enough to wait. What would you do if you realized you'd walked away from more than just a job? Drop a comment below. Have you ever left something behind only to wonder, what if? Julian had built a billion-dollar empire on the principle that timing was everything. He'd learned it from his father, Richard, who'd started with one apartment complex and turned it into Cross Industries through patience and precision. Never rush a deal, his father used to say. Wait until the moment is right, then move fast. Julian had waited 2 years. The moment still wasn't right. He sat in his corner office on the 15th floor, pretending to review the Harbor Point contracts while his mind was across town. The development team had been talking for 20 minutes, and he'd absorbed maybe half of it. Mr. Cross. He looked up. His current assistant, Amanda, stood in the doorway with that hesitant expression they all got eventually. The one that said she knew she was temporary, that she didn't quite measure up to whoever had come before. To Simone. The zoning committee needs an answer by Friday, Amanda said. Approve it. Julian signed the document without reading it, something he never did. Amanda's eyes widened slightly. Anything else? Your father called. He wants to know if you're coming to dinner Sunday. Julian's jaw tightened. His father had been asking pointed questions lately about when he planned to settle down. At 72, Richard Cross wanted grandchildren, and he wasn't subtle about it. Tell him yes. Amanda nodded and disappeared. Julian turned his chair toward the window, looking out over Charleston's skyline. Somewhere out there, Simone was sitting at a desk that wasn't worthy of her talents, working for a boss who probably didn't appreciate that she could reorganize an entire quarter's worth of meetings in under an hour or remember the coffee preferences of 15 different board members. His phone buzzed with a text from his college friend, Dean. Poker night, Thursday. Bring money. Julian texted back. Can't. Working late. Another lie. He'd been turning down social events for months, and Dean was starting to ask questions. The truth was that Julian had become someone he barely recognized, a man who drove past elementary schools and made anonymous donations to scholarship funds and kept a reference letter in his desk drawer that he'd read so many times the creases were wearing thin. Dear hiring manager, I am writing to recommend Simone Harper for any position requiring exceptional organizational skills, discretion, and leadership. He'd meant every word. He'd also left out the parts that mattered, that she had a laugh that could transform his worst days, that she'd once talked him out of a merger that would have cost him millions, that the office had felt cold and empty from the moment she'd cleaned out her desk. Julian pulled up his calendar. Cross Industries was sponsoring Charleston Academy's fall fundraiser in October, a decision he'd made personally, overruling his marketing team who'd wanted to focus on college programs instead. 6 weeks until he'd have a legitimate reason to be in the same room as Simone. 6 weeks to figure out how to approach a woman who probably hadn't thought about him once since she'd left, while he'd spent 24 months thinking about little else. His office phone rang. Cross. Julian, it's Richard. His father's voice was warm but firm. I'm not waiting for your assistant to relay messages. Sunday dinner. 6 o'clock. And bring a date. Dad. I'm serious. You're 39 years old, son. This company needs an heir, and I'm not getting any younger. Julian pinched the bridge of his nose. I'll be there. Alone. Probably. Richard sighed, the disappointed sound Julian had been hearing his entire life when he didn't live up to expectations. There was a time you knew how to have fun. Remember that girlfriend in college? The law student. That was 15 years ago. Exactly my point. After his father hung up, Julian sat in silence. The office felt too big, too quiet. It had been designed to impress, floor-to-ceiling windows, custom furniture, art worth more than most people's houses. Simone used to bring plants in, claiming the space needed life. He'd acted annoyed but had secretly loved coming in to find new green things on his credenza. The plants had all died within 3 months of her leaving. Amanda knocked again. "Sorry, but there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. A Ms. Lorraine Harper." Julian's heart stopped. Harper. Send her in. The woman who entered was in her mid-60s, with the same dark eyes as Simone and a posture that suggested she didn't waste time on pleasantries. She wore a church dress and carried a purse that had seen better days. "Mr. Cross." She didn't offer her hand. "I'm Simone's mother." Julian stood, his mind racing. Is something wrong? Is she? She's fine. Lorraine's eyes were sharp, assessing. "She doesn't know I'm here, and it's going to stay that way." "Understood." He nodded slowly. "Good." Lorraine sat down without being invited, and Julian found himself respecting her immediately. "I'm here because I've been watching my daughter struggle for 2 years. Working herself to exhaustion, raising my grandbaby alone, pretending everything's fine when it's not." "Mrs. Harper, I'm not finished." She leaned forward. "Simone's boss at that firm she works for? He's cutting her hours. Says the budget's tight. But I see him at the country club every weekend, so you tell me where the money's going." Julian's hands clenched into fists. "She'll lose the apartment if this keeps up," Lorraine continued. "She's too proud to ask for help. Too proud to admit that her no-good ex-husband left her with nothing but debt and a daughter who doesn't smile anymore." "Why are you telling me this?" Lorraine's smile was slight but knowing. "Because my daughter came home from work every day for 3 years talking about her boss. How smart he was. How fair. How he actually listened when she had ideas." She paused. "Then one day, she stopped talking about you altogether. And I knew." "Knew what?" "That she'd felt something she couldn't let herself feel. So she ran." The words hung in the air between them. "I don't know what you want me to." "I want you to do what you should have done 2 years ago," Lorraine said, standing. "But this time, she's free. And if you wait too long, someone else won't be as stupid as you were." She walked to the door, then turned back. "The fall fundraiser. She's volunteering. Something about Nia being excited to help. You're a smart man, Mr. Cross. Figure it out." Then she was gone, leaving Julian alone with the truth he'd been avoiding. 2 years of waiting was about to end. Have you ever had someone see the truth you were hiding from yourself? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes the people who love us know our hearts better than we do. The fall fundraiser invitation arrived on a Thursday afternoon, hand-delivered to Henderson and Associates in a cream envelope with Charleston Academy's seal. Simone almost threw it away. She'd been staring at her bank account for 20 minutes, trying to figure out how to make $700 stretch across rent, utilities, groceries, and Nia's after-school care. Her boss, Gerald Henderson, had called her into his office that morning to explain that her hours were being adjusted effective immediately. "Just temporary," he'd said, not meeting her eyes. "Until we stabilize the client base." She'd seen him last weekend at the country club restaurant where her friend Tasha worked. He'd been ordering the $50 steak. "Mom." Simone looked up from her desk. The office was mostly empty. She was one of the few who stayed past 5:30. Nia sat in the corner with her homework, a routine they'd fallen into when after-school care ended at 6 and Simone's shift didn't. "Yeah, baby. Can I get a snack from the vending machine?" Simone pulled 2 quarters from her purse, watching her daughter's face light up like she'd been given $20. The guilt was immediate and crushing. This wasn't the life she'd planned. Nia was supposed to have dance classes and art camp and new backpacks that didn't come from the clearance rack. She was supposed to have a mother who didn't count quarters. The invitation sat on her desk, mocking her. Charleston Academy Fall Fundraiser Gala. October 15th. Ticket price, $200. She was about to toss it when she noticed the second page. Volunteers needed for event coordination, setup, and hospitality. Community service hours available for student families. Community service hours. Nia needed 20 for her Girl Scout badge. Simone picked up her phone and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. Charleston Academy, how may I help you? Hi, I'm calling about volunteer opportunities for the fall fundraiser. 15 minutes later, she was signed up for setup crew and hospitality. Nia would get her service hours, Simone would save $200, and they'd both get to attend the event that everyone at school would be talking about for weeks. She could handle one night of serving drinks to Charleston's elite. She'd done worse. Did you get me a snack? Nia appeared with chocolate on her fingers and a smile. An actual smile, the first one Simone had seen in days. I see you handled that yourself. Mrs. Chen from accounting gave me $1. Nia held up the bill proudly. She said I was being very patient and good. Something in Simone's chest cracked. Her 9-year-old daughter was being praised for being convenient, for not taking up space, for making herself small enough that the adults around her felt generous instead of inconvenienced. Baby, come here. Simone pulled Nia onto her lap, breathing in the smell of her coconut shampoo. You don't have to be patient and good for people to be kind to you. You deserve kindness just because you exist. You understand. Nia nodded against her shoulder, but Simone wasn't sure she believed it. The office phone rang. Simone shifted Nia off her lap and answered. Henderson and Associates. I need to speak with Gerald Henderson. The voice was male, clipped, and vaguely familiar. I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson has left for the day. Can I take a message? Tell him Julian Cross called regarding his proposal for the Market Street development. Simone's hand tightened on the receiver. Julian Cross. Her former boss. The man she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. I'll make sure he gets the message. Thank you. A pause. Is this Simone? Her heart stopped. He recognized her voice. Yes. How are you? The question was simple, but something in his tone made it feel weighted with all the things they'd never said. I'm well. You? Busy. Another pause. I heard you're volunteering for the Academy fundraiser. How did he know that? She'd signed up 15 minutes ago. Nia needs service hours, she said carefully. Nia. He said her daughter's name like he'd been thinking about it. She's in 4th grade now? Yes. The silence stretched between them, filled with 2 years of distance and everything that had happened in the space of her absence. Simone had left Cross Industries without explanation, and Julian had let her go without asking questions. She'd been grateful for that. She couldn't have explained that she was falling apart, that her marriage was ending, that showing up to work every day and pretending to be the competent, unflappable assistant he needed was slowly destroying her. She couldn't have explained that the worst part was how easy it would have been to fall into the comfort he offered, the way he looked at her sometimes like she was more than just an employee, the dangerous warmth that bloomed in her chest whenever he said her name. So she'd run. I'm sponsoring the event, Julian said finally. Cross Industries is the primary donor this year. That's generous. It's a good school. Another pause. I should let you go. Tell Henderson I'll follow up next week. I will. And Simone. His voice dropped, became something softer. It's good to hear your voice. He hung up before she could respond. Simone sat frozen, the dial tone buzzing in her ear. Nia was back in the corner, swinging her legs and humming while she colored. The office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic. Julian Cross was sponsoring the fundraiser. Julian Cross, who had a reputation for calculated business decisions and strategic philanthropy, had chosen Charleston Academy. Had chosen the school where her daughter studied, where Simone would be volunteering in 2 weeks. It could be a coincidence. But Julian didn't believe in coincidences. He believed in timing. Simone picked up the invitation again, studying the list of sponsors. Cross Industries was listed first, with a contribution level marked as Platinum Benefactor. She thought about the plants she used to bring to his office, how he'd pretend to be annoyed but would water them religiously. She thought about the way he'd always remembered her coffee order, how he'd once rearranged an entire board meeting because she'd mentioned having a parent-teacher conference. She thought about the last time she'd seen him, standing in his office doorway while she carried a box of her belongings to her car. The way he'd looked at her like he wanted to ask her to stay but respected her too much to try. "Mom." Nia's voice pulled her back. "Are you okay?" Simone looked at her daughter, 9 years old and already reading her mother's moods like a professional. "Yeah, baby. I'm okay." She stood, gathering her things. "Let's go home." But as they walked to the car, Simone couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. That the careful distance she'd maintained for 2 years was about to collapse. And she wasn't sure if that terrified her or gave her hope. When's the last time someone from your past showed up at exactly the right, or wrong, moment? Drop a comment below. Sometimes the universe has timing we can't predict. The October air carried the smell of salt and jasmine the night of the fundraiser. Simone adjusted her name tag, volunteer, and surveyed the transformed gymnasium. White lights draped across the ceiling like stars. Tables dressed in navy linens. A string quartet warming up near the entrance. Charleston's wealthy had started arriving an hour ago, air-kissing and comparing vacation homes while Simone refilled champagne flutes and smiled until her face hurt. "Mom, look." Nia tugged her sleeve, pointing toward the silent auction table. Someone bid $5,000 on the beach house weekend. 5,000. More than 3 months of Simone's current salary. "That's nice, baby." She handed Nia a stack of programs. "Can you put one at each place setting on the left side?" Nia skipped off, purpose in her step. The Girl Scout vest helped. Wearing it made her feel official, important. Simone watched her daughter navigate between tables, that careful walk loosening into something closer to childhood. Simone Harper. She turned. Her stomach dropped. Julian Cross stood 3 feet away in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. 2 years had barely touched him. Same sharp jawline, same blue eyes that saw too much. But there was something different in the way he looked at her now. No professional distance. No careful boundaries. "Mr. Cross." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Julian." He moved closer, and she caught his cologne, cedar and something expensive. "We're not at the office anymore." "No, we're not." The quartet started playing. Around them, volunteers rushed past with trays and clipboards. But Julian's attention never wavered from her face. "You look good," he said quietly. Simone glanced down at her simple black dress, 5 years old, hemmed twice. "I look like volunteer staff." "You look happy." The observation startled her into honesty. "I'm surviving. I heard about Henderson cutting your hours." His jaw tightened. "That's not right." "How did you?" She stopped. "Your mother came to see you." "Your mother came to see me." Simone's heart stopped. "What?" 2 weeks ago. Told me you were struggling. Told me I was an idiot for letting you walk away." He smiled slightly. "She's not subtle." Heat flooded Simone's face, embarrassment mixed with anger. "She had no right. She loves you." She interfered. "Maybe." Julian's voice dropped. "But she wasn't wrong." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Simone's pulse hammered in her throat. This was dangerous territory. Julian Cross was her former boss, a billionaire, a man so far outside her current reality that standing this close felt like trespassing. "I should get back to work," she said. "Have dinner with me." "Julian." "One dinner. Catch up. No pressure." His eyes held hers. "Please." She should say no. Should maintain the distance she'd built so carefully. Should protect herself and Nia from the complication of wanting things they couldn't have. "When?" The word escaped before her brain caught up. "Tomorrow night. I'll pick you up at 7. I have Nia. Bring her. He said it without hesitation. There's a place on the water. She'd like it. Simone opened her mouth to argue, to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But Julian was looking at her like she was the only person in the room, and God help her, she'd forgotten what that felt like. Okay, she whispered. His smile transformed his face. Okay. Ms. Harper. A volunteer coordinator rushed over. We need you at the beverage station. Simone nodded, but before she could move, Julian caught her hand. The touch was brief, electric. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow. She walked away on shaking legs, hyper-aware of his gaze following her across the room. At the beverage station, she poured wine with mechanical precision while her mind spun. One dinner. What could happen in one dinner? Everything, her heart whispered. Everything could happen. Have you ever said yes when every logical bone in your body screamed no? Comment below. Sometimes the scariest decisions lead to the best stories. The restaurant sat on a pier stretching into Charleston Harbor, weathered wood and string lights reflecting off dark water. Nia pressed her face against the car window. Mom, there's a boat. I see it, baby. Julian's Tesla pulled up beside them in the parking lot. He'd offered to drive them, but Simone had insisted on meeting him. She needed an escape route. Needed to know she could leave if this became too much. Ready. Julian appeared at her window, and her stomach flipped. He'd dressed down, jeans and a white button-up with rolled sleeves. It should have made him more approachable. Instead, it made him devastating. Ready, she lied. Inside, the hostess greeted Julian by name and led them to a corner table overlooking the water. Nia's eyes went wide at the boats bobbing in their slips, the lights of Fort Sumter in the distance. Can I get anything started for you? The waitress smiled at Julian with obvious appreciation. Sweet tea for the table? He looked at Simone for confirmation. She nodded, remembering. He'd always known her order. Nia climbed into the chair beside her mother, suddenly shy. Julian sat across from them, his long legs bumping the table. Sorry. He adjusted his chair. I don't fit well in booths either. How tall are you? Nia's question came out small but curious. 6'3". How tall are you? 4'2". I'm short for my age. I was short at 9'2". Julian leaned forward conspiratorially. Then I grew 6 inches in one summer and knocked over everything in my dad's house for a year. Nia giggled. The sound hit Simone square in the chest. What do you like to do, Nia? Julian asked. I'm in Girl Scouts. And I like to read. What are you reading now? Percy Jackson. The Lightning Thief. Julian's face lit up. That's a great one. Have you gotten to the part with Medusa yet? Nia launched into an animated description of the story, her shyness evaporating. Simone watched in amazement as her careful daughter transformed, laughing and gesturing while Julian listened like she was discussing Shakespearean literature. The tea arrived. Then appetizers Julian ordered without consulting the menu. Crab cakes, fried green tomatoes, hush puppies. Nia reached for a crab cake, hesitated. It's okay, Simone said softly. But Julian was already pushing the plate closer. The remoulade sauce is incredible. Trust me. They ate. They talked. Julian asked Nia about school, about Girl Scouts, about her favorite subjects. He asked like her answers mattered, and Simone watched her daughter bloom under the attention. Can I go look at the boats? Nia asked when the main course arrived. Stay where I can see you, Simone said. Nia skipped to the railing 20 feet away, and suddenly Simone was alone with Julian for the first time in 2 years. She's wonderful, he said quietly. She's been through a lot. I know. His eyes met hers. So have you. Simone looked down at her shrimp and grits. Julian, what are we doing? Having dinner. You know what I mean. He was quiet for a moment, watching Nia point at something in the water. 2 years ago, you walked into my office and quit. You didn't give me a real reason, and I didn't push because I could see you were barely holding it together. Simone's throat tightened. I wanted to ask you to stay, Julian continued. I wanted to ask what was wrong, how I could help. But you were married, and I had no right to any of it. Julian, I'm not finished. His voice was gentle but firm. I spent 2 years respecting your distance. 2 years staying away because I knew you needed space to heal. But Simone, I'm done waiting. Her heart hammered. You don't know what you're asking for. I'm a single mother. I'm broke. You're the woman I've been in love with for 5 years. The words stopped her cold. I fell in love with you somewhere between the 3rd month you worked for me and the day you reorganized my entire filing system and color-coded my calendar. A smile ghosted across his face. You made me laugh during board meetings. You called me out when I was being an ass. You made my office feel like somewhere worth being. Tears burned behind Simone's eyes. I know this is fast, Julian said. I know you have every reason to say no. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. Let me take you to dinner. Let me get to know Nia. Let me prove that I'm serious about this. About what? About you. About us. He reached across the table, his hand open, waiting. About building something real. Simone looked at his hand, then at Nia watching the boats, then back at Julian's blue eyes that had haunted her dreams for years. She thought about her empty apartment and her shrinking bank account. About Nia's careful smiles and the weight of single motherhood. About all the practical reasons this was insane. Then she thought about the way Julian had included her daughter without hesitation. The way he'd listened to Nia talk about Percy Jackson like it mattered. The way he was looking at her now, patient, hopeful, steady. Simone put her hand in his. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. What made you finally take a leap of faith on love? Share your story below. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is say yes. 3 weeks passed in a blur of dinners and phone calls and slow, careful courting. Julian took them to the aquarium. To a pumpkin patch where Nia chose the biggest gourd she could carry. To Sunday breakfast at his father's house, where Richard Cross took one look at Simone and smiled like he'd been waiting years for her to arrive. You're the one who organized the Mercer deal, Richard said over pancakes. Julian talked about that for months. Brilliant strategy. Simone had blushed. I just made some suggestions. She saved us $4 million, Julian corrected. Now it was early November, and Simone stood in Julian's downtown penthouse for the first time, watching the city lights spread below them like scattered diamonds. Nia was at her grandmother's, Lorraine had insisted, with a knowing smile that made Simone simultaneously grateful and mortified. This was their first evening truly alone. Wine. Julian appeared with 2 glasses. Please. He handed her one, their fingers brushing. 3 weeks of dates, and he still hadn't kissed her. The restraint was starting to drive her crazy. Your place is beautiful, she said. It's too big. He leaned against the window beside her. I bought it 5 years ago thinking I'd fill it eventually. Never got around to it. 5 years. When he'd fallen in love with her. Julian. She turned to face him. Why haven't you kissed me? His eyes darkened. Because once I start, I won't want to stop. Maybe I don't want you to stop. The wine glass disappeared from his hand. Then hers. Then Julian was cupping her face, and finally, his mouth was on hers. The kiss was slow, thorough, devastating. He tasted like wine and want, and Simone felt 2 years of loneliness crack open inside her chest. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Julian made a sound low in his throat and backed her against the window. The city sparkled behind her, but all she could feel was him. Solid and warm and real. Simone. Her name was a prayer against her lips. Don't stop, she whispered. I need to tell you something first. He pulled back slightly, breathing hard. Henderson fired you this morning. The words took a moment to register. What? He called me today. Said he was eliminating your position. Julian's jaw was tight with anger. I wanted to tell you in person. Simone's stomach dropped. Fired. No job. No income. Hey. Julian caught her chin gently. I have a proposal. Julian, if you're about to offer me money, come back to Cross Industries. She froze. Not as my assistant, he continued quickly. As Director of Strategic Operations. Your own team. Salary of $200,000 plus benefits. You'd be developing acquisition strategies, managing high-level negotiations. Everything you're brilliant at. It was too much. Too convenient. I can't. Why not? Because we're dating. It's a conflict of interest. It's smart business. His voice was firm. You're the best strategist I've ever worked with. I've interviewed 15 people for this position in the past year, and none of them were half as good as you. This isn't charity, Simone. This is me wanting the best person for the job. People will talk. Let them. He stepped closer. I'm not hiding you. I'm not pretending this is just professional. Everyone at Cross Industries will know we're together, and they'll also know you earned your position through merit. Simone's mind raced. $200,000. Benefits. Nia could have dance classes. Art camp. A backpack that wasn't second-hand. There's an HR policy, Julian said. No direct reporting relationship between people in a relationship. You'd report to the COO, not me. Everything by the book. You've thought this through. I've thought about nothing else since Henderson called. She looked at him, this man who'd waited 2 years, who'd included her daughter in every date, who'd just offered her not charity but opportunity. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll take the job. She smiled. But I have a condition. Anything. Kiss me again. Julian's laugh was pure joy. Then his mouth was on hers, and Simone let herself fall into it. Into him, into the terrifying possibility that maybe she deserved this. Deserved him. They moved to the couch, kisses deepening. Julian's hand slid under her blouse, and Simone arched into his touch. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her neck. Not a chance. Have you ever had to choose between pride and opportunity? Drop a comment. Sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing we can do. The boardroom fell silent when Simone entered for her first day. 12 executives stared at her, some curious, some skeptical, all clearly aware she was sleeping with the CEO. Julian sat at the head of the table, his face professionally neutral. This is Simone Harper, our new Director of Strategic Operations, the COO announced. She'll be leading the Waterfront District acquisition. A man in his 50s leaned back. That's a $40 million project. I'm aware, Simone said calmly. You have experience with acquisitions this size? I structured the Mercer deal that saved this company $4 million. I negotiated the Sullivan Street development that's now your most profitable property. And I did it while being paid assistant wages. She met his eyes. So yes, I have experience. Julian's lips twitched. The executive shut up. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Simone presented her strategy for the waterfront acquisition, property assessments, zoning complications, community impact studies. By the end, even the skeptics were nodding. Excellent work, the COO said as people filed out. Julian lingered. When they were alone, he crossed to her. You were incredible. I was terrified. Didn't show. He brushed a thumb across her cheek. Dinner tonight? I'm cooking. You cook. Poorly. But I'm trying to impress you. She laughed, and the tension in her shoulders eased. Then his phone buzzed. Julian's face changed as he read the message. I need to take this. I'll call you later. Everything okay? Family thing. It's fine. But his voice was tight. He left, and Simone gathered her materials, trying to ignore the whispers she could feel building in the hallways. She'd known this would happen. The assumptions, the gossip. Her phone rang. Nia's school. Ms. Harper? This is Principal Stevens. Nia's in the nurse's office. She's not sick, but she's quite upset. Can you come? Simone's heart dropped. I'll be right there. She found Nia curled in a chair, eyes red. The nurse stepped out, giving them privacy. Baby, what happened? Some girls said. Nia's voice cracked. They said you're only rich now because you're dating a rich man. That we're gold diggers. Rage flooded Simone's system, hot and immediate. Who said that? Emma and Claire. Their moms were talking at pickup yesterday. They heard them. Of course. Charleston's wealthy mothers, gossiping about the single black woman dating Julian Cross. Simone had expected judgment, but she hadn't expected it to reach her daughter. Look at me, Nia. She waited until her daughter's eyes met hers. I got my job because I'm good at it. Because I've worked hard my whole life. Those girls, and their mothers, don't know anything about us. But we are richer now. You got a new job and we moved apartments and I earned it. Simone's voice was firm. You understand? Everything we have, I earned. Julian doesn't pay our bills. He doesn't support us. We support ourselves. It wasn't entirely true. Julian had insisted on paying for dinners, activities with Nia. But the core was accurate. The job was merit-based. The salary was hers. Nia nodded, but doubt lingered in her eyes. They drove home to the new apartment, 2 bedrooms in a better neighborhood, affordable now with Simone's salary. Nia disappeared into her room while Simone paced the living room, fury building. Her phone buzzed. Julian, can I come over? Need to see you. She almost said no. Almost told him she needed space to deal with this. But something in his message felt urgent. Yes. Nia's upset. Long story. He arrived 20 minutes later, his face drawn. What happened at school? He asked immediately. Simone explained. Julian's expression darkened with each word. I'm going to call those parents. No. Simone held up a hand. That makes it worse. Makes it look like you're fighting my battles. Simone. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The words burst out. People thinking I'm with you for money. That I didn't earn this job. That Nia and I are just opportunists. Julian stepped closer. You know that's not true. It doesn't matter what I know. It matters what they think. She sank onto the couch. Maybe this was a mistake. The job, us being public. Don't. Julian knelt in front of her. Don't let them make you small. Don't let them take this away from us. It's affecting Nia. So we'll handle it. Together. His hands covered hers. I'll talk to the school. We'll address this head-on. That's not how this works, Julian. You can't just fix everything with money and influence. His jaw tightened. Then tell me what to do. I don't know. The admission cracked something open inside her. I don't know how to date you and keep my daughter safe and prove I'm not what they think and... Nia's door opened. She stood in the hallway, watching them. Mr. Julian. He turned. Hey, Nia. Are you and my mom fighting because of me? No. Julian and Simone said it simultaneously. Nia walked over, her face serious. Those girls at school are mean. But Mom says mean people are just scared people. Maybe their moms are scared too. Out of the mouths of babes. Julian looked at Simone, something shifting in his expression. She's right. They're scared because you're challenging their assumptions. Because you're proof that the world they've built their identities around is changing. Doesn't make it easier, Simone said quietly. No. He squeezed her hands. But we don't have to make it easier for them. We just have to make it work for us. How do you handle people who judge your choices without knowing your story? Comment below. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the judgment, it's protecting the people we love from it. Julian's father collapsed during Sunday dinner. One moment Richard was laughing at something Nia said about her science project. The next, he was on the floor, clutching his chest. The ambulance ride blurred. Julian held his father's hand while Simone kept Nia calm in the waiting room. By the time the doctor emerged, Julian's face had gone gray. Heart attack. He's stable, but he needs surgery. Triple bypass. When? Julian's voice was hollow. Tomorrow morning. He'll need significant recovery time. Months. Julian nodded mechanically. Simone watched him shut down, his shoulders rigid with control. Later, in the hospital hallway, she tried to reach him. Julian, talk to me. I'm fine. You're not. He turned, and the devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. He's all I have. My mom died when I was 12. If I lose him, you won't. She gripped his arms. He's strong. He'll make it through. You don't know that. No. But I know you're not alone in this. Something cracked in his expression. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I can't do this without you. You won't have to. The surgery took 6 hours. Richard survived but looked frighteningly fragile in the ICU. Julian sat beside him, holding vigil. You should go home, Simone said gently. Nia needs to sleep. I'll stay. I'm not leaving him. Julian. I said I'm not leaving. His voice cracked. Simone stepped back, stung. Nia appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Julian saw her, and shame flooded his face. Nia, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. It's okay, the 9-year-old said quietly. You're scared. That's okay. He looked at this child, offering him grace, and something broke. Yeah, I'm really scared. My mom says it's brave to be scared and stay anyway. Julian's eyes met Simone's over Nia's head. Your mom's a smart woman. They stayed together through the night, Simone, Julian, and Nia curled in uncomfortable chairs. Around 3 a.m., Richard woke briefly. Julian. His voice was weak. Dad. Don't talk. Save your strength. Listen. Richard's eyes found Simone. Don't be stupid like me. I waited too long to tell your mother I loved her. Wasted years. His grip tightened on Julian's hand. Don't waste yours. Dad. Marry her. Build the life. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Richard's gaze shifted to Nia. You've got a ready-made family right here. Don't let fear make you miss it. Then he was asleep again, leaving Julian staring at Simone with raw emotion. He's right, Julian whispered. Simone's heart stuttered. Julian, you're exhausted. Your dad just had surgery. This isn't. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I know it's fast and complicated, but Simone, I don't want to waste another day pretending this is casual. What are you saying? I'm saying I want forever. With you. With Nia. His voice steadied. I'm saying that when my dad gets out of this hospital, I want him at our wedding. The world tilted. That's not a proposal, Julian added quickly. When I propose, it'll be romantic and planned and… Yes, Simone interrupted. Yes. Yes to forever. Yes to us. Yes to whatever comes next. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. Julian kissed her then, deep and sure, while Nia pretended to sleep and smiled. Has a crisis ever made you realize what truly matters? Share below. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to understand what we really have. Marcus Harper appeared 3 days later. Simone's ex-husband stood in the Cross Industries lobby like a ghost from a life she'd buried. Security called her office. There's a Marcus Harper here to see you. Says it's about your daughter. Simone's blood went cold. Send him to conference room B. I'll be right down. She found him studying the corporate art, same arrogant posture she remembered. He turned when she entered. Simone. You look good. Successful. What do you want, Marcus? I heard you're dating Julian Cross. Saw the pictures in the society pages. His smile was thin. Quite the upgrade from me. If you came here to... I want custody of Nia. The floor dropped out from under her. What? Joint custody. 50-50. Marcus leaned against the table. I've been thinking about it. She's getting older, needs her father. And now that you're with Cross, you've got the resources to make it work. Simone's hands shook with rage. You haven't seen her in 8 months. You missed her birthday. You stopped paying child support. I had financial difficulties. You had a new girlfriend and a boat. I'm settled now. New job, stable income. His eyes hardened. And I have rights, Simone. A good lawyer could argue you've been keeping her from me. I never kept her from you. You abandoned her. A judge might see it differently, especially when they hear you're sleeping with your billionaire boss. Marcus smiled. Looks opportunistic, unstable, maybe not the best environment for a child. The threat was clear. Fight him, and he'd drag her relationship with Julian through court. Make her look like exactly what Charleston society already whispered, a gold digger using her daughter to trap a rich man. Why are you doing this? Her voice broke. Because you don't get to win, Simone. You don't get to leave me, take my daughter, and land on your feet with someone better. His mask slipped, showing the ugliness beneath. You don't get the happy ending. He left her standing there, shattered. Julian found her 20 minutes later, still frozen in the conference room. Simone. He touched her shoulder. Security said Marcus was here. What did he want? She told him. Watched his face go from concerned to furious. He can't do this. We'll fight him. Best lawyers, whatever it takes. And prove his point? Simone laughed bitterly. That I'm using your money and influence? Julian, if we fight this with your resources, we hand him the narrative. So what do we do? I don't know. She looked at him, this man who'd promised forever 3 days ago. Maybe he's right. Maybe I moved too fast. Maybe Nia needs stability, not. Don't. Julian's voice was steel. Don't let him make you doubt us. He's her father. He's a man who abandoned his daughter and only came back when he saw you were happy. Julian took her face in his hands. We'll figure this out. Together. But Simone saw the fear in his eyes. The same fear she felt. That sometimes love wasn't enough. That the past could destroy the future. That Marcus might actually win. Have you ever had someone from your past try to destroy your present? Comment below. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we thought we'd already won. The solution came from the last person Simone expected. Lorraine sat across from her daughter in the small kitchen of Simone's apartment, hands wrapped around a coffee mug. I kept records, she said quietly. What? Every missed birthday. Every cancelled visit. Every time that man promised Nia he'd come and didn't show. Lorraine's eyes were hard. I documented it all. Dates, times, her tears. I knew someday you'd need proof. Simone stared at her mother. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were healing. You didn't need to think about him. Lorraine pulled out a folder, thick, organized, damning. But now you need ammunition. So here it is. Text messages. Photos of Nia waiting by the window. A spreadsheet tracking 18 months of broken promises. Medical bills Marcus never paid. School events he'd missed. It was devastating. It was perfect. Mom. Simone's voice cracked. Thank you. You don't thank me for protecting my grandbaby. Lorraine squeezed her hand. You just go show that man exactly who he's dealing with. The meeting happened 2 days later in a lawyer's office downtown. Marcus arrived confident, his attorney beside him. Then Simone's lawyer slid the folder across the table. My client is willing to discuss visitation, the lawyer said calmly. But joint custody? Not happening. Marcus opened the folder. His face drained of color. 18 months of documented abandonment, the lawyer continued. Medical neglect. Emotional damage. If you pursue custody, Mr. Harper, we'll pursue full termination of parental rights. And we'll win. You can't. We can. And we have 3 child psychologists ready to testify about the harm your inconsistency has caused. The lawyer leaned forward. Here's what you're going to do. You'll agree to supervised visitation, 2 hours every other Sunday. You'll pay your back child support in full. And you'll never threaten my client again. Marcus looked at Simone. She met his gaze steadily, no longer the young woman he'd broken. Or, Marcus asked weakly, or we go to court, and you lose everything, including the sympathy story you've been planning. His lawyer whispered something urgent. Marcus's jaw tightened. Fine. Just like that, it was over. Simone walked out of the building into bright November sunshine. Julian waited by his car, Richard beside him in a wheelchair, the older man's first outing since surgery. Well? Julian asked. He agreed. It's over. Julian pulled her close, and she let herself collapse into him. Richard reached up and patted her hand. That's my future daughter-in-law, he said proudly. Knew you had steel in you. Simone laughed through tears. He hasn't proposed yet. Oh, he will. Richard winked at Julian. Boy's been carrying a ring for 2 weeks. Julian's face flushed. Dad. 2 weeks. Simone pulled back, looking at him. I was waiting for the right moment, Julian admitted. But, honestly, there's no perfect time. There's just us. He dropped to one knee right there on the sidewalk, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. Simone Harper, you're the strongest person I've ever met. You're an incredible mother, a brilliant strategist, and the love of my life. His voice steadied. Will you marry me? Through tears and laughter, Simone said the easiest word she'd ever spoken. Yes. Have you ever watched someone you love find their strength? Comment below. Sometimes the greatest love stories are about becoming who we were always meant to be. The engagement announcement hit Charleston society like a bomb. Simone watched the reactions ripple through Cross Industries, congratulations mixed with whispers, smiles edged with skepticism. But she didn't care. The ring on her finger felt like armor. Mrs. Cross-to-be. Julian's assistant delivered coffee with a genuine smile. The waterfront project contracts just came through. Your strategy worked perfectly. Simone reviewed the documents, satisfaction warming her chest. $40 million, negotiated flawlessly. Let them whisper, her work spoke louder. Nia's reaction had been the best part. Does this mean Mr. Julian is going to be my dad? She'd asked, eyes wide. He'd like to be, Simone said carefully. If that's okay with you. Nia had launched herself at Julian, nearly knocking him over. Can I call you Dad? Julian's eyes had filled with tears. I'd be honored. Now, 2 weeks before Christmas, they stood in the Charleston Academy auditorium for Nia's winter concert. Simone sat between Julian and her mother, Richard on Julian's other side, recovering well and beaming. Nia sang in the chorus, her voice clear and confident. No more careful posture. No more making herself small. She's blooming, Lorraine whispered. That's what love does. After the concert, Emma's mother approached, one of the women who'd gossiped months ago. Simone, congratulations on your engagement. The words were stiff but genuine. And I owe you an apology. What I said before, it was unkind and unfair. Simone could have been petty. Instead, she chose grace. Thank you. I appreciate that. The woman nodded and walked away. Julian's hand found Simone's. You're bigger than I would have been, he murmured. I learned from a 9-year-old. Simone smiled at Nia, who was laughing with friends, real friends now, not girls who judged her worth by her mother's choices. Later that night, in Julian's penthouse, they finalized wedding plans. Small ceremony. Close family. New Year's Eve. 3 weeks, Julian said, pulling Simone onto his lap. Think you can handle being married to me? I've handled worse. She kissed him softly. Besides, someone has to keep you organized. I have an assistant for that. Not like I did it. True. He tucked hair behind her ear. Nobody does anything like you. Richard called from the guest room. He'd been staying with Julian during recovery. Are you two being inappropriate out there? No, Dad. Julian called back. Well, hurry up. I want grandchildren. Simone buried her face in Julian's shoulder, laughing. Your father has no filter. He nearly died. Gave him permission to say whatever he wants. Julian's expression softened. Besides, he's not wrong. I want kids with you. More siblings for Nia. Slow down, Cross. Marry me first. 3 weeks too slow? She kissed him deeper. Ask me again in 3 weeks. Nia appeared in the hallway, clutching her stuffed bear. Can I sleep here tonight? My room at home feels lonely. Of course, baby. Simone made room on the couch. Nia snuggled between them, and Julian's arm came around both his girls. This, Simone thought. This was what happiness looked like. Not perfect. Not without scars. But real. And theirs. And enough. When did you realize your family wasn't defined by biology but by choice? Share your thoughts. Sometimes the family we build is exactly the one we needed all along. New Year's Eve arrived wrapped in winter sunshine and promise. The ceremony took place in Richard's garden, the one his late wife had planted 40 years ago. White roses climbed the arbor where Julian waited, hands clasped, eyes locked on the pathway. Then Simone appeared. She wore champagne silk, simple and elegant. Nia walked beside her in navy blue, carrying a bouquet of white camellias. No father to give her away, Simone was giving herself, whole and healed and ready. Julian's breath caught audibly. The ceremony was intimate. Lorraine wept. Richard beamed from his chair, healthy enough now to witness the future he demanded his son not waste. 30 guests watched as Julian and Simone promised forever. I never believed in perfect timing, Julian said during his vows, voice thick with emotion. But then you walked into my office 7 years ago, and I knew I'd wait however long it took. 2 years. 5 years. A lifetime. You were worth every second. Simone's turn. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. You loved Nia before you loved me. You gave me space to heal and courage to try again. Her voice broke. You gave me home. When the minister said, "You may kiss your bride," Julian cradled her face like she was precious and kissed her like she was everything. The reception flowed into evening. Nia danced with her new grandfather, giggling as Richard spun her carefully. Lorraine cornered Julian. You hurt my daughter, and billionaire or not, I'll make your life miserable. Yes, ma'am. Julian grinned. I'd expect nothing less. As midnight approached, Simone found herself on the terrace, watching fireworks bloom over Charleston Harbor. Julian wrapped his arms around her from behind. Mrs. Cross. Still getting used to that. Take your time. We have forever. He turned her to face him. Happy. Simone thought about 2 years ago. Broken, divorced, struggling. Thought about the morning she dropped Nia at school, unaware that her former boss was watching, waiting, hoping. Happier than I knew possible, she whispered. Inside, Nia shrieked with laughter. Richard was teaching her to waltz, butchering the steps spectacularly. Lorraine filmed it, shaking her head fondly. Ready to go home? Julian asked. Home. They're home now. The penthouse where Nia had her own room, where family dinners happened every Sunday, where the plants Simone brought actually lived because Julian watered them religiously. Ready, she said. He kissed her as midnight struck and fireworks painted the sky. A new year. A new life. A new chapter written by choice, not circumstance. And this time, the ending was theirs to write. The end. What's your new beginning story? Drop a comment below, because sometimes the best chapters of our lives start when we finally believe we deserve them. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to know that second chances are real. Happy New Year, and here's to writing our own happy endings.
Thank you so much for watching till the end. It truly means a lot to me. If this video touched your heart or resonated with you in any way, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to Emotional Voyage. Your support helps us reach more souls on this journey. Until next time, take care of your heart.